So we all have the same 24 hours of the day, right? Do we survive it? Do we co-create it? Do we look forward to it? It's the same 24 hours that passes either way. So much of it, just like in the skit, starts with a perspective. How do we choose to see the things that we choose to see? No two people see the same thing alike. Seek and ye shall find. If you seek the miracles, you'll find them. The other day I was watching a television show. That's something I get a great deal of time to do, but I was watching a TV show, and I started to think about it for just a second. I thought, somebody had to have this idea, this concept of this show, and then they had to take the time to write it down. And then they had to pitch it to these people, and then it had to be shown to these people, and then it had to be approved. And then this whole army of people showed up to do casting and to do wardrobe and to do lighting and to do the editing and to do the recording and to do all this stuff. And every week they have to produce a whole new episode. It has to be written and edited and acted and rehearsed, and the lighting and the camera and the sets and the scenery. And it provides jobs for all these people and all this stuff. And this one television show is an example of 1,000 potential television shows that could have been chosen. This one was. What a miracle that one TV show is. Now, for each of the people, and I've been on several TV sets, there are upwards of 50 to 150 people employed on one television show. Now, for each of those people, I could see them at whatever point that one job was ending, saying, "Oh, please, God, give me a job that's in the field that I love, that's what I'm trained to do, that's blah, blah, blah." Got a phone call who said, "Can you come in for an interview?" And it was them being interviewed with 10 other people or 100 other people. And they said, you got the job. Can you start Monday? And they get to repeat that 100 times to create this cast and this crew. There are like thousands of little miracles that go into just one television show. I started to think about the actors as people, not just actors, not just the character they were playing. And I started to look at their life, and the TV show I was watching at the time was a rerun of House. And so I was reminded of the actor who plays House and his story, and way back when he started in London with this production company, and all these people that he kind of came up with, and all these different roles that he's had, and all this stuff, leading into this one role that's now become a household name. Oh, everybody knows House, blah, 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 that guy, da, 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 da. And how many miracles are represented there? Oftentimes in life we can get so complacent because we start looking at the things that we don't have. It's the Joneses society, but they have more than I do, and they don't seem to struggle as much as I do, so there must be something wrong here. And then when we take time, we stop for just a second, and we look at other places in the world that have electricity a couple hours a day, or have electricity not at all, where families, up to 30 people, live in a space the size of this living room. Doing the way that we had planned, we go inward, and we start to be real critical of ourselves. There's a parable about a man who complained to God that he had no shoes until he met a man who had no feet. Oftentimes as human beings we can choose to be comparative, and there's no reason. Because I am God, you are God, God is in all things. That spark of God is in all of us, experiencing life in all different degrees. The beautiful part though is it's a team sport. It's not up to any one of us individually to figure it out or to master it. Now there's times in my life that I've lived in that awe state. That I've woken up in the morning excited to wake up. Before I even open my eyes, having a conversation with God. Let me co-create a miracle with you today. Tap me on the shoulder when there's something I can do as my part. And I go throughout my day, when I wake up that way, I go throughout my day looking for the opportunity for that miracle. At different times, you might have been the miracle that I was talking about that day. I didn't know it. I was following a trail of breadcrumbs where God was leading me to you. To have a phone call or a conversation or a smoky treat in the back or whatever it is. Recently, we've all got an education through this thing called the Iraqi dinar. The currency itself has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with is the sense of awe that came back to every person who was touched one of those little pink pieces of paper and thought, what if? Thought that if this does blah, 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 then I can do these things that I had only ever dreamed of before. And with that, we started to allow ourselves to dream. To actually allow ourselves to visualize and to focus on having or experiencing whatever it is that before we thought was out of our reach. God doesn't need a pink piece of paper, although he may utilize one. It simply gave our mind, the how, something to grab onto. God can bring an opportunity, can bring massive change in your life in a millisecond. I used to speak at conferences where folks who had had near-death experiences were technically dead for X amount of time will tell you without question their lives changed in a millisecond. The second they died, and the second they came back to life, and how different they viewed everything from that moment forward. We watch somebody on TV when the Publishers Clearinghouse folks show up at the door. Their lives just changed in a millisecond. When someone calls and says, Mom, I'm pregnant, life just changed in a millisecond. It can change so quickly. And we are creative beings. A chicken doesn't give birth to a dog. A chicken gives birth to a chicken. Light creates light. God creates spirits. Creator creates creators. So we all have a spark of that creator inside of us. We all have the ability to co-create with each other and with God. So I invite you this week to wake up, as you wake up in the morning, before you open your eyes, before you spring out of bed, you have a moment, just a quick conversation with God. And if it feels right to you, ask, God, before I even start my day, I would really like to co-create a miracle with you today. When the opportunity shows up for me to do my part to co-create that miracle on the giving or the receiving end, I'll utilize my free will, my intention, and I'll seize that moment, even if it's just a moment. Once upon a time, Mary and I were on tour. We used to travel a lot. We'd go to a whole bunch of different cities in a row, and then we'd come back and we'd do more readings and workshops and all these things. I'll never forget, we cruised into a little town called Riverton, Wyoming, that we'd been at about 6 months before, helping folks out. And we cruised back in to do some sessions and to do some workshops and all this fun stuff. And this woman, who I didn't even recognize her, came up and she said, Scott, can I talk to you for just a second? I said, yeah, what's going on? And we went around the corner. It was a big room. A couple hundred people were all lined up. And she pulled me off to the side and she said, when you were here 6 months ago, you told me exactly what I needed to know. You told me exactly what I needed to hear. Now, my part, I couldn't have picked a woman out of a crowd. I had no idea who she was, but apparently 6 months earlier, I had made some time for her. She shared with me, she said, 6 months ago, what you didn't know was I was in the process of committing suicide. When my phone rang and a friend said, there's a spiritual guy who's coming to town, and I think you may want to go talk to him. And she said to herself, well, I guess I can finish killing myself tomorrow. then I came and I talked to you and you told me exactly what I needed to know. Exactly what I needed to feel. And I've had not one suicidal thought since then. You may not even remember me, but you saved my life. I would have been dead 6 months ago had we not had one conversation that lasted 8 minutes in a hallway of a hotel. You never know how big of an impact you have on somebody's life. Because most of the time, people won't pull you aside by the hand and say, the 8 minutes you gave me changed my world. Each one of you are powerful creators with big hearts, children of God, in a team sport called life, filled with awe, wonder, mystery, and excitement. I pray that this is your next week, each day, each month, each year,